looks like he's coming our way. Hopefully we can scare him away.
All right, another day alive. For us anyway, right? Well, that reminds me too, I'm gonna share something before we get going on somewhat on that topic. Feeling kind of beat up. I did a lot yesterday. Holy cow. Anyway, I shared a handful of days ago that a friend of mine passed away. I didn't know the circumstances at all. But I found out, and I believe it's worthy of sharing with the world. All right? Take from what you will or leave it. I met this guy years ago on this hunting forum where for British Columbia, outdoors people, a lot of people made friends on there. And followed the adventures of others and knowledge shared. This guy was a solid dude, and he's also, coincidentally, he was one of the most elite, skilled outdoors backcountry hunters I met. And it's probably why him and his little gang, I should say his little gang, I mean him and his tight circle of friends, just a small handful of them. They didn't really boast of their hunting skills or their success, but they shared with me in private. They weren't about that, which I love. And we really hit it off years ago. Very successful guy, good guy, and he did a lot to help a lot of people, especially young outdoors people, kids, wildlife, conservation groups, everything above, right? Successful man, and another solid guy. So anyways, I went back onto that hunting forum the other day. I haven't been on there in years, and they started a thread about him passing, but no great details. So it really took me back because I was in contact with this solid dude fairly often, and I did not know of any hint of anything wrong with his health or anything last time we spoke, which was just a couple months ago. Anyway, another solid guy, real solid guy from that hunting forum saw my thread, and he passed on a note to a mutual friend, which got to me. And I feel strongly about these topics right now, especially, and I'm going to share what I received, all right? I'll leave out some names, I believe. All right, I'm going to share his name. I'm sure he would not want me to keep this hidden. So here's the text that I received through a mutual friend from another very solid outdoors guy in British Columbia. It said, I have some info about Dave Brown that I'd like you to please pass along to Steve Isdall, if you don't mind. Steve and I are Facebook friends, but he's a busy man. Dave and I were messaging several days a week. I already sent this to one of the forums, a guy on the forum, so I'm just going to copy and paste it here. She, his wife, was over the top on vaccines. Dave was more reasonable and pointed out the inconsistencies from the government. They split up in and around early 2022. That just makes you want to vomit, doesn't it? The divide that horse shit put in communities, relationships. He blacked out the same day as his booster in January 2022. And his ex found him in a puddle of his own piss on the tile. Nasty, nasty concussion that still wasn't right until the day he died. Since that day, he also got gushers of blood from his sinuses and occasionally his ears. He thought it was from the impact, but just a few weeks ago, he finally linked it to the jabs as two of his friends developed brain bleeds. What the fuck's up with that? As soon as he said that, I sent him info on the mechanism of injury, as I had already sent that to a coworker who also developed a brain bleed. Fuck, that makes me so mad. Then I resent him detox info. He actually seemed interested to take it this time. Still no word on the cause of death. He lost one brother a few months ago, and his older brother is on his deathbed with a bad heart. So with no family left, pushing for an autopsy, I doubt we'll see one. Honestly, I felt this one coming. There you go. Doesn't it make you want to puke? Well, it's truth been shared. So anyway, yeah. I maybe I read a comment or had an email from one of the subscribers here, a young, healthy woman, mother, I believe, and she shared that the second she got one of her shots, she went paralyzed from the neck down, and that's how she remains. And there's no denying this shit. And obviously not everyone had a negative impact from these absolute insane forced injections. But many, many have, and there's no denying it. There's no denying it. The people who promoted and supported divide because of whether or not you did get it or not, holy shit, are you weak between the ears, right? So weak. Anyway, there you go. Rest in peace, Dave. And all the other literally thousands and thousands of people who have died because of the rushed injection. We didn't make anybody take it, oh really? But you made it so they couldn't work. Feed their children, right? A friend of mine down the road, he reluctantly took the first one. And then we got him some ivermectin. And then he shared with me the other day that he hasn't spoken with his mother in 3 years over this issue. Right? Adventure Dog is back. Chewing on their bone under the table. If you hear that grinding sound, it's not me. But anyway, there you go. I won't go into too much of a rant about it, but I just hope and pray that I can live to see the day where the people responsible for this pay. That's what I got to say about that. Now, let's hear from the late great Bobby Short again. While I'm here, I'm leaving again today. Leaving again today, up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. So this book shall stay here because I know I'll get it covered and I'll ruin it if I take it anywhere. We left off with the next entry. It's titled White Sands Missile Range, Alamogordo, New Mexico. Oh, I hope I pronounced that right. I don't want to get flooded with emails. The last letter regarding military base sightings occurred before there was any publicity regarding hair-covered Bigfoot. At the time, they were called abominable snowmen. The letter was only partially recovered from my oldest computer, vintage 1989. I pieced it together as best as I could for this purpose. It came from a H.L. Seeds, Norton, who claimed to have had a security clearance at the White Sands Missile Range in the late 1940s. During the establishing of the complex for early-day testing rocket and missile technology. The facility at White Sands is a huge complex northeast of La Cruz, New Mexico. I hope I pronounced that. La Cruz. C-R-U-S-E-S? All the way north to just south of Albuquerque. To the east is Alamogordo, situated at the edge of Lincoln National Forest. To the west, Gila, Cibola, and Apache National Forests. This provides plenty of daytime cover for the hairy ones, nicknamed the Shooter. Nicknamed the Shooter by construction crews. Norton wrote about civilian employees there at White Sands Missile Range who quit after a nightmarish hour of screaming heard emanating out on the desert floor someplace. Imagine that, quitting because of just the screaming. That's not getting chased or rocks thrown at you, right? Or seeing red eyes. Anyways. At some point, a spotlight was shone on the screamer, which then shot across the desert like Wile E. Coyote in the Road Runner cartoons of the 40s and 50s, thus the nickname. There was virtually no public discussion in the media about hair-covered wildlife forums in the 50s, so it makes sense that the sight and sounds of what must have been a Bigfoot-like entity seemed like hellish monsters to the Mesoamerican laborers hired to pour concrete slab foundations at White Sands. If there is currently activity at White Sands, I haven't heard about it, but I wouldn't have been surprised. U.S. Army, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 82nd Airborne Division, Recondo School. The GCBRO website had an interesting upload that fit well with the idea of Bigfoot sightings in and around military installations. This one was in Hoke and Cumberland counties on the Fort Bragg installation. Here's that entry. Quote, although I marked the terrain as woody, we've been moving through the swamps all day long and emerged about 1,700 hours to fairly thick level pine forest and scrub undergrowth. We were the recon school for 82nd Airborne Division, a sort of baby ranger school where they try and cram nearly 3 months of impossible training into 3 weeks. The first sense of something odd was that I thought someone was pacing us, just beyond our range of vision in the underbrush. I tried to brush it off as the echo of our own footsteps into the brush. I mentioned it to a buddy and he heard it too. Just as the platoon leader for this phase of the field training exercise began to give operation orders, we all heard what sounded like the heavy footsteps of a man just beyond our vision, and only where there was ample brush for cover. The Black Hat, the grader of our platoon, sent 2 men out to see what it was. In the meantime, we continued with op orders. After about 20 minutes, the 2 men returned, only to have those footsteps return as well. Here we were trying to focus on getting the orders down and figure out exactly what our individuals' roles would be, and at the same time, someone was out there stomping in the brush. The Black Hat, a veteran of these training exercises and a full-fledged ranger, did not look comfortable with what he was hearing. He sent 2 more soldiers out to investigate while we tried to get back to the top orders. By now it was getting dark, but we could still make out the shapes and avoid bumping into trees. The details of anything dark moving around were not distinguishable, but the 2 guys saw it. They were moving slowly through an area the sounds of the footsteps were coming from, trying to avoid what looked like a large shrub of some sort on the ground. They went around it. And at this time, the shrub stood up on 2 legs and raised its arms over its head. These 2 real tough recondos screamed, turned tail, and ran full speed right straight through our perimeter, and likely would have kept going had we not called them back. One guy said the thing was as high as I could hold my M16. This would make it 9 to 10 feet tall. I'm 6'2", and I voiced doubt about the actual size. He backed off the size a bit. When I started snooping around a little, I turned up some reports of Bigfoot-like creatures they called the Manchester Monster, name withheld by the GCBRO. To understand how big Fort Bragg Army installation is, it covers 2 counties, Hoke and Cumberland counties. The base is sandwiched in between Simmons Army Airfield to the southeast and Pope Army Airfield to the northwest of Fort Bragg. It's a huge complex. And just like Quantico Marine Base in Virginia, the region around and on the base has a history of sightings near the ammo storage areas. One of those Bigfoot regulars that frequented the ammo storage areas was nicknamed the Manchester Monster. The description of this creature is the same as that of the Canadian and the Alaskan Bigfoot. That is, slightly taller than most recorded height calculations in the lower 48. There were reports of the Fayetteville Observer about base sightings of the creature and a story about the Manchester Monster in the Paraglide News. The area around the ammo storage facility is off limits and is massive swamp area from Blackjack Road, Riley Road, to the Manchester area at the Fort Bragg Army installation. It was said one of the local residents saw the creature in his neighbor's yard. Another road crossing sighting occurred nearer to Simmons Army Airfield in 1988, and at the time it was believed to be the same Manchester Monster reported near Blackjack Road. It was once sighted heading towards Smith Lake, which sits on the eastern side of Simmons Army Airfield there in North Carolina. regarding the U.S. Army base at Fort Bragg, MSGT Chewy V wrote, quote, "Me and my buddies were knocking back a few at the local hooch one night. We had to hustle back to the barracks when it got late. On the way back, the three of us encountered two strange beings. Black in the moonlight, they shouted at us for a half a mile. We jogged, they jogged. We stopped to listen, it stopped. Then in unison, we turned and poured on the lung power, and waving our arms wildly, causing the freaky things to peel off into the woods. Surprised that we stopped them, we kept running, double timing it back, and never said a word. Not one word to a living soul." Ridicule by fellow soldiers, or a fear of a Section 8, which is old school terminology for mentally unfit for duty, often keeps on-base sightings of Bigfoot to a minimum. Section 8 refers to a category of discharge from the United States military for reason of being mentally unfit for service. However, being discharged under Section 8 is no longer a military reality, as medical discharges for psychological or psychiatric reasons are now covered by a number of other regulations. In the Army, such discharges were handled under the provisions of Army Regulation 635-200, Active Duty Enlisted Administrative Separations. Chapter 5, Paragraph 13 governs the separation of personnel medically diagnosed with a personality disorder. In a follow-up bit of correspondence, I pressed Chewy for a description, and he said due to the alcohol he consumed, the creatures were a blur in the dark. He recalled they were black or dark and big, which he wrote in capital lettering. They might have been wearing furry stadium coats. The informant was looking for any validation that the monsters might have been Bigfoot-like creatures. What would you have told him? As for a certain call for all things Fort Bragg, September 2011, this interesting addendum presented itself. Quote, Staff Sergeant Joshua Ford, the spokesman for the 82nd Airborne Division, said, "A load of ammunition went missing from the 1st Brigade combat team at Fort Bragg Army Base. The brigade was placed on lockdown while officials conducted a search for the missing ammunition, generally used in M4 and M16 rifles. The missing 5.56 millimeter ammunition is valued at about $3,600 and can be purchased at any Walmart," according to an official familiar with the investigation, who spoke to Reuters only on condition of anonymity. An interesting part of the report was a man can hide 1,400 rounds of ammunition on a secure Army base. Sorry. The interesting part of the report was, what man can hide 14,000 rounds of ammunition on a secure U.S. Army base? Who carries off that much ordnance without being seen? Curious if the ammunition was ever found. I phoned the base, but getting any kind of information was like pulling teeth. Undeterred, I phoned Reuters, and after 30 minutes of transferred calls, I learned the ammunition had not been found. The security guards were in the brig, but not officially charged, pending where and when the ammo is found. I was told that everything on the base must be accounted for, and that 14,000 rounds simply doesn't vanish. Yet a complete search turned up nothing. Is it a stretch to think one of the hairy guys in a stadium coat walked off with the 14,000 rounds? Maybe. There are 11 towns within a 17-mile radius of Fort Bragg Army Base, North Carolina, that boast strange sightings, to include ghosts, haunted buildings, and other apparitions. Bigfoot sightings rank right up there in high number count. What else do we got? Okay, one more. Fort Drum, the 10th Mountain Army Division, New York. Fort Drum is located on more than 107,000 acres in the picturesque Thousand Island region of northern New York State. Considered one of the most beautiful regions in the United States, the base at Fort Drum supports readiness and mission execution for combat-ready forces. I didn't know anything about the region of Fort Drum until August of 2005, when in an email I read in part, quote, "I'm a civilian worker at the Fort Drum facility in New York. No name, please. I am reporting Bigfoot living at this place. I heard secondhand from a group of Army personnel, soldiers here on base, headed out on a run towards Wheeler Airfield, north end of the base. They were jogging toward the Black River when they told me they encountered a large monstrosity that was a head and shoulders above the tallest guy on the run. That guy had to look up at the monstrosity, and he told us it towered over them like a balloon in the Macy's Day Parade. It was hard to believe it was a real thing, but across Fort Drum Road in 2 steps and went into the trees like those guys weren't even there. I don't know what happened after that. This is Jefferson County, New York. 2 years ago, I was privy to a conversation between a non-com being dressed down and an officer. What I heard was, "Look, son, it didn't happen. Are we clear?" Later that same day, I inquired of the kid in the office what he did to get yelled at. He said he saw a booger, like they had back home in Alabama. Confused, the kid said with some bit of alarm in his voice, "I know what I saw, but I was told I didn't see it." Pricks. Right? Pricks. Keep the true knowledge from the honeybees, right? You honeybees don't need to know anything. Just keep making that honey and shut up. Right? Yeah. Anyway, I can tell my mood is a little south today. I could probably let a few F-bombs rip and rant, so I'm aware of it. I'll try to keep my shit in a line here today. All right. What do we got? There's a handful of emails here I just skipped by that have been waiting for a bit. This is titled Audial? Odd Isle. Audial. A-U-D-I-L-E. I wonder if you meant audible. And telepathic experience, mid-70s. Hi, Steve. My name is Trish, a.k.a. Jane Danger. And here's my piece of the puzzle. I am inspired to share by other people's stories and also defiant because of the attempts to discourage you. Right on. Welcome aboard. Early spring, mid-70s on the east bank of the Kettle River, just north of the Sandstone MN train trestle. Is that Canada? Because we have a trestle by the Kettle River, I believe, but Minnesota is MN. Anyway, my friend and I decided to go to sleep on the cliffs just for fun. We packed our gear and headed out just before sundown, made a fire, and just enjoyed the evening. There was still a little snow on the ground, and the ice on the river was just breaking up. We were in a cave just about 10 feet from the top of the cliff and maybe 70 feet up from the valley floor. The fire died out, and we fell peacefully asleep in our respective sleeping gear. All of a sudden, a big black horse appears out of my peripheral. Sorry. One more time. Just around dark 30, something woke me up. Suddenly, wide awake, I opened my eyes and the fire was long out. She seemed to be sound asleep on the other side. And suddenly, I heard in painfully loud, long drawn out howl from just above us. It warbled and screeched and bellowed. It went on and on. I've never in all my life heard anything like it, and in my memories have nothing to compare it to. I tried very hard to remember the exact sound of it and have even scoured the internet for recordings. Simultaneously, a picture and command came into my mind. It was very clear, but not in English or any language. The message was basically, don't move, go back to sleep, there's no danger. From about a mile up the river valley came an answering call, but with a different message. That one, quote, "This is where I am," end quote. Then in my mind's eye, I saw the location and image of the one calling out. I was actually falling asleep. I was falling asleep against my will, but wanted to stay awake with everything I had. The sound was mesmerizing and enchanting, and it paralyzed me. Then once again, the one who was above us started calling out again, and I think I fell asleep listening to it. Hard to imagine, I know. Next thing I know, the sun was up and it felt cold. I popped out of my sleeping bag like a jack-in-the-box and said to Margaret, "Holy shit!" She was already sitting up looking at me and said, "I heard it and I couldn't move." So we celebrated the great mystery and felt elated, packed up our gear and walked home. There is more, but I'm at risk of embellishing the story. Both of us were just girls then. I 16 and she was 15. In my life I have had very many encounters with wild animals, and like you, I chose to walk on the wild side. I've had face-to-face encounters with wolves, coyotes, a couple of bears, moose, deer, elk, bison, mountain goat, and many others. And not one sounds like this. I am First Nation. My elders have shared some stories. We consider the Sasquatch to be the elder brother, as they were here first before us, and we used to walk with them. Thank you, Steve, for sharing, Jane. Jane, appreciate you sending that in. Sorry it took so long to get your email. I hope you're still here. And if you are, maybe you might want to email us again and share some more. I know I'm greedy, but I want to hear it all. Man, I got a whole pile of emails here listed as unread. What the hell? Well, I guess they're all over the place, aren't they? Even in my main inbox, it says there's 3,500 emails unopened. Just in my email, not in my notes here. So let's keep this going. This sounds familiar. Might have read this. Why is it not marked as read? Hyena, dogman, drowns a deer. The lights and missing time is a title of this email. Hi Steve, hope you're doing well. I've tried sending this in a few times, but I of course understand that you're overwhelmed with emails. I think that's probably why I'm about to read it again. So here it goes again. Sorry if this is long. You can share my name and location. As soon as I read something familiar, I'm going to dump it. We're going to keep going. You asked us in a previous video to send in encounters/info about the dog man. And I have one that a friend shared with me, and a few encounters I have heard about in my area that I have heard about on other podcasts. I also have had some weird things that have happened to me in the woods over the last few years. Please feel free to share all these stories if you'd like. My name is, and my name as well. No one should feel ashamed for experiencing something strange in the woods. Or anywhere. Dogman. I have a dogman story one of my good friends shared with me. My friend grew up here in Maryland with me, and I've known her since high school. She lives out of state now, but when she visits, we always exchange hiking stories and things we see out in the woods. Her job involves her being out in the woods for days at a time, so she's very familiar with all things out in nature. Anyways, one day we were talking about weird stuff we had seen and heard in the woods, like my encounters you will read below, and she told me something that shocked me. Let me preface this by saying she knows I am interested in the Bigfoot topic and that I have experienced weird things. So, she felt comfortable telling me what happened to her. She told me that while taking a trip to southern Maryland to visit a college campus with her mom, there's a spot in the road that people apparently see the ghost of a Civil War soldier cross the road. As they're getting closer to this spot, she said that a giant black dog ran across the road in front of the car on all fours. She told me the dog's back was 5 feet off the ground. This is sounding familiar. Then again, that's a common description. She said it happened so fast that her mind couldn't register what had even happened until they were further down the road. She asked her mom if she saw it too, and she had no idea what she was talking about. If I'm not mistaken, I think she got her mom to drive her back to the spot where it crossed, and she saw nothing. The crazy part of the story is I have never mentioned to her that people see these dogman things. I completely trust her and believe her story. I showed her some pictures of dogman I've seen on the internet that artists have drawn, and she immediately pointed to one that looked like a black German Shepherd. I've never seen one of these things, and I don't think I ever want to. There's a river I go hiking along that has had some terrifying encounters with a creature that looks like a hyena with a lion's mane. I pray to God before I go hiking here that I do not run into this thing. I haven't had any gut feelings telling me to leave or anything like, therefore I still go out doing what I love. Good for you. Good move. Again, that's the adventure dog chewing on her bone under the table. Apparently back in the year 2000, 3 men were wading in the river while fishing one day. They went around a bend and saw this hyena-type dogman in the river, and it was drowning a deer. Then it apparently bluff charged the 3 men. Then it scooped up the deer with 1 arm and walked away into the woods on 2 legs. If you travel further south down this river, someone else was apparently chased on their dirt bike by another hyena-type dogman, and this happened only a few years ago. I wonder if it was the same one. It seems like if you follow this river north, Bigfoot encounters happen near this wildlife refuge, and south people run into this dogman thing. Unfortunately, I recently heard of a sighting where one of these things grabbed someone, and the guy passed out from fear. This apparently happened just a few miles away from where I'm sitting right now in an upper middle class area that is highly populated, and there aren't that many areas that have woods anymore because of more houses being built. This blew my mind because I thought this area was safe. But obviously, these things have no boundaries and do what they want. I heard these encounters on a YouTube show years apart, so I cannot personally verify if these stories are true. But what are the chances of 2 people that don't know each other report the same creature, the same behavior, near the same river years apart? I personally believe their stories. There's a lot of reports of these things in Maryland. If you're interested, Google the Dwayyo. D-W-A-Y-Y-O. It's apparently what they are called here. We also have the Goat Man. Yes, half man, half goat. I would be surprised if that's real too. Haha. There's been a shit pile of sightings. Don't shoot the messengers. The lights. I want to say this happened in the winter of 05 or 06 at my parents' house. I was 16 or 17 years old at the time. One night I woke up out of a dead sleep around 4 a.m. Normally I just roll over and go back to sleep or get up and go to the bathroom, etc. But on this night, something in my head told me to get up and go look out the window. I walked over to the window, opened the blinds, and at about 30 yards into the woods, I see 2 balls of yellowish white light traveling next to each other, coming straight towards the house. They were a little larger than softballs, if I had to guess. My heart sank. They were slowly floating closer and closer towards the house at about 4 feet off the ground. The creepy part is, as I stared at them, it was like they knew they had been caught. The lights stopped dead in their tracks and quickly dimmed like someone was using a dimmer switch for a light bulb. The power of our eyeballs that we are not taught about, right? What's going on? These were definitely not flashlights or car headlights because there were no rays of light touching anywhere else in the woods. These lights were self-illuminated. Naturally, at first I thought I was seeing 2 people walking through the woods to come break into the house or something like that. There have been break-ins in our neighborhood in the past, so this is why I thought this. I ran and woke up my parents and told them that I think 2 people are coming through the woods to break in the house. We turned on our porch light, we went outside, and my dad yelled for whoever was out there to come out, or something along those lines. We heard absolutely nothing. No footsteps, no animal crunching the leaves, no cars driving by, nothing. It wasn't until years later I really started to think about how strange this truly was. Why did I wake up out of a dead sleep and feel the need to go look out the window? How did the light seem to know that I was looking at them and stop in their tracks? It was pitch black in the woods that night, so how could they have seen me in my window? I feel like whatever these things are, that they were just passing through. I've never had anything strange or creepy happen in these woods other than these lights this one time. I'm very comfortable in the woods around here and would regularly walk home from my friends at 2 or 3 a.m. after drinking and stuff like that, and I've never seen anything strange like this on the property since, until a few months ago. A few months ago I was having an outside late at night, I was having a fire outside, late at night all by myself. It was after midnight, and off in the distance I saw a dark yellow orb-type light faded in and out very quickly about 50 yards away. I brushed it off as being a neighbor's Christmas lights or a porch light turning on. But I thought to myself, there's no way I can see anyone's house from where I was standing. The closest house is through the woods and up over a small hill, so no chance it was a house. I thought maybe it was an eye shine from a deer. As quickly as I thought that, the same dark yellow light appeared again out of the corner of my eye to my right, like it was just traveling through the woods, like it had some place to be. I didn't feel threatened, but I didn't want anything to do with it. So I just went back to my fire and left it alone. I'm now 32 and I haven't seen these things in the woods since I was in high school. I think I've seen the lights on a few other occasions after I moved. In my 20s, I moved into my friend's house in the suburbs about 10 miles away. We lived in a normal, quiet neighborhood that had a school at the top of the street. There were some woods nearby, but these sightings, if I can call them that, happened at the house. These sightings were just quick glimpses. And I always wondered to myself, did I really see what I thought I just saw? One night I came outside to let my dog out. And as he does his business, I normally look up at the stars and just kind of look around. And on this particular night, I looked up, and it looked like I saw a bluish-white orb hiding behind a tree, in my neighbor's yard about 20 feet off the ground. I say this because when I saw it, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. And when I went to get a better look, I feel like I saw it behind another tree, like it was trying to avoid me. This thing was moving very fast because I only got a very quick glimpse of it, and that's why I'm still wondering if my eyes were playing tricks on me. It went out of sight so fast. Another time, a few years ago, same house, and I was letting my dog out again. The only difference was this one happened in the morning while the sun was up. I was about to leave for work, so I let my dog out to go to the bathroom again. And I was looking around again, and this time on the opposite side of the house, it looked like I saw a yellowish-white ball of light duck behind a tree again. It was like, as I was turning my head, it went, oh crap, he's gonna see me. Like it was trying to hide. So that one was a real quick glimpse, and I didn't see anything when I went to go check. So I'm not really sure what to make of these lights. Now the Sasquatch. In my free time, I go hiking any chance I get, so I'm always in the woods. Especially now because I'm unemployed due to all this COVID BS. A few years ago, I wanted to see if there was anything to this whole Bigfoot/Sasquatch stuff. So I started hiking in the areas that have had reports so I could see for myself. To make a long story short, the more time I would spend at these places, the more I would have strange occurrences. I've heard many tree knocks, seen many tree structures, or what I believe to be structures. I've heard of a whoop, a whistle, and I've had creepy feelings of being watched. At this one particular area that I hike, I've had numerous strange things happen there, and the place just gives off this very negative vibe. I've run into some sketchy people there, and I just feel off about being there most times. Anyways, one day I was hiking there, and there's this half-a-mile stretch of trail that just makes me feel uneasy a lot of times. I always have my head on a swivel, and I'm always very alert, because you never know who or what you might run into in this place. It's also a great way to see wildlife. So I get to one spot on the trail, I'm getting that creepy feeling like I'm being watched. I feel like I'm just working myself up, and it's probably nothing. And to my left, there's a little, I guess I'll call it, a trail or a gully that goes up to the top of a ridge that's covered in bushes on both sides. But at the very bottom, closest to me, there's a little opening. I always look to see if I could see deer or anything like that. And on this particular day, I noticed the opening looks dark. And I'm assuming it's because it's morning and it's just a shady spot. But I keep hearing this voice in my head saying, "Stop looking at me," or "Do not look over here." My head was pounding and I froze. I turned my back to where the shady spot was because I couldn't take it anymore. And it felt like that's what I was supposed to do. And I heard something run off quickly up the hill right where I was looking. I have no idea what it was. At the time I thought it was just a deer, but if it was a deer, why did I have those thoughts? Why was I so creeped out? I've more recently heard what I can only describe as heavy stomping in that almost exact area. And I have heard a tree knock that I felt like was a warning for me not to come through the area. It's an incredibly strange area. I've heard someone laughing right behind me once. When I turned around, no one was there. I was watching a ghost show and it talked about this exact area. Someone allegedly found some book in a shack back there and then got possessed by a demon. I don't know if that's true, but the place is definitely creepy. I've never seen any shacks or anything like that, or anything like that back there, so who knows. Token plane flying by. Another time I got insanely lost. If you stay on the trail, it's impossible to get lost, and I've been here numerous times. I was just walking in circles, and all I can remember is that I was on a trail I've never been on before, and I've never been able to find the trail since this one day. I remember I had to literally crawl under 2 fallen trees to completely block the trail. I feel like my mind was foggy. I remember finding my own footprints in the sand. If I would have followed them, I would eventually find my way out, but for some reason I didn't, and I kept wandering. I don't remember much, but I eventually heard a train and found my way out by walking down the tracks. I remember being on a trail that had what I thought were tree structures. Excuse me, and I just wanted to leave so bad. There was also a bad thunderstorm approaching too, and I was starting to get even more anxious. I followed the train tracks back to where I know the trail intersects with and got the F out of there. The strange part about this is that to get to the trail that I was on that led me to the train tracks, I would have to either walk through the thick woods, excuse me, or walk out to a main road, cross it, excuse me, frog-y-throat. I would either have to walk through the thick woods or walk out to a main road, cross it, and cut through a church parking lot, then a graveyard, then 2 people's backyards. I do not remember after leaving the trail. I have no idea how I got there, where I was. I'm not sure if I was disoriented or if I had missing time or something. I know for a fact I was wandering for at least an hour. I know this place very, very well, and I have no idea if it was even possible for me to get lost here. This doesn't really bother me at the time. This didn't really bother me at the time. I just thought to myself that I messed up and got lost somehow. But I still think about this every day. And the more I think about it, the less it makes sense to me. I keep thinking, was about to be a missing 411 statistic? While I was lost, there was a massive thunderstorm rolling in. I got out of the woods just in time. I'm not sure what to make of the situation, but I urge everyone to listen to your gut and pay attention to strange feelings. Nothing wrong with leaving the woods and coming back another day if it doesn't feel right. I've been testing the pressure, as you say, for years. There are places I've been where I have felt incredibly uneasy at times, but then I return at a later date and everything's completely fine. And I can enjoy my hike. Thanks for taking the time to read this. I just want to add to the collection of weird stories and let people know they're not alone and not to feel ashamed for what they've seen. Kevin, Pasadena, Maryland. Appreciate the message at the end, man. That's a pile of crazy shit, as usual. The lights, you know what? Every time I hear about the lights, my memory goes back to driving into Whistler, British Columbia from Pemberton years ago in the winter time. And it was, I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. No, it would have been a little earlier than that. But it was well after dark. And looking way up to the left in the top of those big mountains. I think it was Wedge Mountain. I'll never forget it. I remember seeing these bright freaking lights. They weren't quite at the peak of the mountain, but would have been on the north face, basically sheer cliffs. And I remember looking up like, what the hell is that? Way up there, but bright, like stars. And I thought, because there's a lot of mountaineers around Whistler and everything. But I mean, man, it was like -20 or something. And I could only imagine how cold it was up there. And I just couldn't imagine. Because you know those rock climbers who do that crazy shit? They lay in their hammocks suspended by ropes and stuff. It's just really hard to imagine people pulling that shit off up there at 9 o'clock-ish that night or whatever in pitch black and -20 down by the highway. Who knows what it was up there. And I remember I actually pulled over. No binoculars, of course. No video camera or whatever. I just kind of pulled over and watched and looked, and a couple blinked a little bit, and I thought, what a bunch of crazy asses doing that shit at night. But I keep My brain keeps referring back to that scene I saw when I read from all the people here, seeing the bright lights. And then coincidentally, not far from there is where I recorded with my video camera a few years later, those bright lights up there again in the middle of, that would have been late November, at 5 in the morning. Go figure. And the trail that goes up there, which is a long, long trail, my outside, a friend of mine, she was training, professional skier, and she got to the parking lot. She was doing that huge hike up for exercise, and the dogs didn't want to get out of the vehicle. Then she felt real uneasy, like she was being stared at, and got the hell out of there. Quote. And then some other people emailed me from the same zone, and they saw a tree swaying back and forth above them up on the trail, and they looked at it, and they could see huge, hairy legs and feet. I think they just saw the legs from down to the feet behind the tree that was swaying back and forth. The list goes on. Right where the lights were. The hyena thing. Drowning a deer. That's an odd way for any kind of canine flavor, anything to kill. Usually they just grab it and start shredding with their teeth, right? Drowning. Intentionally drowning, scooping it up with, quote, one arm, end quote. How alarming is that to watch that shit going down? So many people have reported seeing a hyena-type animal. Not even a man-like hyena-type. Had a few people say the man-like hyena-type thing. But also just as many, I think, people have reported seeing a massive hyena-looking thing with the back above the hood of the truck. Around the US and in Australia, too. We've heard it down there, too. And in British Columbia from an angler that didn't want me to share his name or his whole story. But he described it to a T, and he said it was walking with confidence and attitude right across in front of his truck in the dark. So much shit going on. Anyway, I woke up, I guess I woke up about 3 in the morning again. And I just hit my phone, put out some podcast. I don't know what button I hit, but I'll fall asleep again, but the phone keeps playing videos. And I woke up to something being played, and it was a guy being interviewed from Whitehall, New York. Wasn't it Whitehall? Remember? And it was the police officer being interviewed with all that shit going down, and he was describing seeing this thing. And he said that, I just woke up to this, and he said that he described the sound that came out of its mouth that said it put its arms and hands up to cover its eyes from the lights, their lights, about 30 yards away. But he said that the howl / scream said it was deep and a combination between a man and a woman sound, deep. But he said that it was exactly as if somebody was blowing a tuba in your face, feeling it. And he said he could almost see the sound vibrations too, coming out of it. What the F is up with that? I haven't experienced that yet, I don't want to. So many people have though, right? How the hell, and he said that he estimated the height, or the weight to only be like 500-600 pounds. I mean, I've seen, I don't know how many bull elk pushing 1,000 pounds, and not one of them made a sound like that. They make loud screaming sounds in the rut. I've called them into 10 yards away, screaming their guts out. Excuse me. I haven't felt their scream. Moose. I don't know how many moose. Good God, how many moose have I seen and called in? I don't have a clue. It's in the hundreds. And they're all over 1,000 pounds. Some even close to 2 grand. And they make loud sounds. I can hear a moose grunt from on a crisp, cold morning. You can hear a moose from a long ways away. But I've been, like I said, I've been at least 10 yards from a 1,800 pound bull moose grunting his face off. Doesn't do, you can't feel it. Can't feel it at all. I've heard some grizzly bears make some pretty intimidating sounds. Holy shit. I've heard some grizzly bears while we've been going at it with the rifle, but I've heard some, the deep guttural coming up a big grizzly bear, like, 20 yards away. That's one hell of a sound. That's a very intimidating sound. But didn't feel it. Didn't vibrate my rib cage. Didn't shake my soul. You know what I mean? How the F do these people, these man-like beings, pull off that sound? But then again, how do they pull off disappearing? How do they pull off making their tracks go up in snow and stop? Etc., etc. Right? The points that people see all the time and the mainstream scumbags have kept under wraps as long as they could. Cat's out of the bag, douchebags. Right? The cat's out of the bag. Can't hide that any longer. Heard one of those prominent Bigfoot organization places have now started seeping out a lot of the facts that they've kept hidden. Funny how people have to join in doing that to try to stay in the game, right? Uh-oh, I guess we better start telling the truth because nobody's paying attention to us anymore. Gee, I wonder why. Have something to do with the lying sacks of shit. Might have something to do with it, right? Anyway, I gotta get moving. Got a lot to do. Whew, my Sizvolic pre-warned everyone this is my chaos time of the year. So I can put this amount of energy towards this topic, what I'm doing right now, but as far as trying to find people lining up conversation one-on-one right now for me is next to frickin' impossible. I've got so much on the go. My hunting apps, I had so hard for me to get them updated. I finally have a lady updating them so they will all function smoothly again. And I believe that'll be done today. I'm not going to say shit about that until it's 100% done across the board. That's been so frustrating for me. I do everything myself. I fix my vehicles. I solve any problem that comes up. I'll fix it. But when it comes to the tech shit and my app's not playing the videos and the information properly and trying to hire somebody and not even speaking that language in that world is so effing frustrating. Holy shit. But I'm getting that done. And that's coming forward here pretty quick, and I'll let everyone know when that's ripping along. But anyway, I'm babbling. Share my story, howtohunt.com. Get it to me. Quit being scared. Life has been pretty interesting lately, has it not? It's funny with all the U.S. American election stuff coming up. A bunch of shit going on in Canada, Europe. Wouldn't it be cool if the dirtbags that actually control the puppets, if they finally just revealed their faces publicly? Wouldn't that be kind of great? Probably be alarming. But wouldn't that be great? If the people who were pulling the strings actually came forward and said, okay, we're the ones in control, just so you know. Enough of the bullshit. We are the ones you must listen to. At least then we'd have our targets clear, right? Oops, did I say that? I guess that's why they stay hidden in the shadows, right? Like most sacks of crap do. What am I doing? I'm going to read again. No, I'm not. Okay, I gotta go. My brain's ripping all over the map. I got 10 million topics in my head. The links are below for anything you may currently be interested in when it comes to our place and what we have to offer up right now to get everybody talking around the globe, which is these little devils that are in the link below too. There you go. And I hope to hear from some people soon about conversations that these decals knee-jerk in the public, right? Decals, these stickers, they are ripping around the frickin' planet. Somebody, email me in a conversation you've had. I know it's happened already, without a doubt. And I think I'll probably be back tomorrow, but it's not going to be till later. Later on tomorrow. There you go. I'll be back.